Happy March, and welcome back to the Hunter's Quilt Mart Heirloom Bloom Block of the Month. This month we are working on Block 3. I will be completing it using the Bluebird's Nest fabric line, and here it is using Parlor and Ambiance. It uses fabrics 1, 4, and 10, and I'll be labeling each part as we go along to help you out. The full directions and exact measurements are on page 13 in your pattern booklet. Let's get started. We're going to begin with fabric 1. So I'm going to take 4 and 10 and move them off to the side. And fabric 1, I already have folded in half. And I'm going to start by trimming up the left edge. So my fold is over here. And then I'm going to make 2 cuts. We need a total of 16 squares from this background fabric. So there's our first cut. And there's our second cut. We're going to take both of these and turn them sideways like this. And I'm going to begin. I'm double checking to see exactly where that other piece is underneath to make sure we get a nice straight edge and we have both fabrics lined up the same. So I've straightened up the edge. Scoot those down just a little bit so they fit on my table better. And we're going to be doing 4 cuts all the way across. So there's 1, 2, 3, and 4. And this is scrap for you today. And because we doubled these up, that means that we have a total of 16 of these squares. And that's our background fabric, and we're labeling those A. Push those up out of the way. And now we're going to use fabrics 4 and 10. Both of these get the exact same cuts. So I'm going to cut those at the same time. So I'm going to stack them on top of each other. And those are really long. And I'm going to trim off that left edge. We want a nice straight edge to start with. There we go. And then we're cutting 2 long strips There's one. And two. And then we're going to take those two strips and we're turning them sideways. We're going to straighten up that left edge. We need 4 each of these pieces. Remember, the exact measurements are on page 13 in your booklet. There's your scrap. From fabric 4, the 4 pieces are going to be B, and from fabric 10, those pieces are going to be C. And now we're ready to go to the sewing machine. We're going to begin with our fabric 1 pieces, and that's the cut B, and our fabric 4 pieces, which are the cut A. You're going to need 1 B and 2 A's, and we're going to take the A fabric and flip it over to the back side and draw a diagonal line across the back. You'll be sewing right on this line, so you don't want to use anything too dark because it could show through on the other side. This is a stitch and flip method, and the exact directions are on page 5 in your pattern booklet. I'm going to go ahead and draw another line 1/2 inch away from the first line that I drew. We're going to have some pretty big offcuts on these that we can save to use for another project. If we go ahead and sew this line, we can make those right now. So you're going to take your fabric B and place a fabric A piece on it like this, with the diagonal line starting at this corner and coming across this way. If you chose to do the 1/2 inch line as well, you want that to be closer to the corner. And now we're going to take this to the sewing machine, and we are sewing directly on that line. If you are using your diagonal seam tape, then you're using the red line right here to line up that point. And you can line it up this way. You can also flip those around, and you could also sew it this way. And you want to make sure that when you're sewing, your sewn line is just 1 thread width on the other side so that we have a little bit more room to flip this over. And again, we're sewing right on that line. And then I'm going to flip it around, and I'm going to sew directly on the half line, that 1/2 inch line that we drew, and come right back down. So you can see how I have it lined up right there. I also have double of the tape on my sewing machine because I like to do this whenever I have these large offcuts that I'm going to be cutting. And so I use this other line to line my corner up. And then up here, I have a 1/2 inch line, so I can line that corner up there. And if I'm doing a lot of these, I don't want to draw those lines every single time. So that's another option. Oops, got a little crooked, that's all right. Okay, so I like to press mine first and then flip this back, and I'm lining up that edge with that corner so that I know that it matches exactly where I need it to be before I cut it off. And there it is all done. And I'm going to flip that back, and I'm going to cut this 1/4 inch away from my original sewn line, which should be halfway in between the two. And then you're going to have this piece as a 1/2 square triangle, and we'll come back to that later. So there's the first one. Then you're going to take your second piece A, and you're going to lay it so that the diagonal line is parallel to this one, or it starts at the opposite corner and runs up to this side. And we're going to do the same thing. We're going to sew directly on both lines. I'm coming back down the other side. And there it is all done. I'm going to press it first, flip that corner back, make sure it matches, and everything's lined up just where I want it to be. And then press it down. And then I'm going to trim off that little offcut. And there's our finished piece. You are going to make 4 of these, and you're going to make 4 using the fabric C cut from fabric 10. And then you're going to put your B fabric on top and the C one on the bottom, and you're going to sew these together. And then you're going to press, and you're going to fold it over to fabric C. And there's the one piece. You're going to end up making 4 of these, making sure that your B or fabric 4 is on the top and your fabric 10 is down on the bottom. And these will make up our whole square. So you're going to turn this one so that that is towards the inside, and you want this diagonal line here to point right to the center, because this is going to make like a little type pinwheel in the corner. So this one goes like this. And there you go. That's the layout. And so you can see that our fabric 10 creates like this pinwheel, and then we have almost like a little echo coming out the side. We're going to sew the top row together. You can see the whole thing that way. There we go. And we're going to sew all of this together. I'm going to flip this one over and this one over, and we're going to take it to the sewing machine. So when you're sewing your pinwheel, right here in this corner, these will nest very nicely, and you just line everything else up. And then I'm going to continue with the other bottom half. Get that started, and then I'm lining everything up. So we have both of those. We're going to press. In the top row, we are pressing to the right. And in the bottom row, we're going to press to the left. And then we're just going to sew right along the bottom. Connect those two together. And that should nest right there in the center. Make sure that you can feel that lined up right there in the middle. matching these corners. And there's our block. All right. And because of that bulk right down the middle, you're going to want to press this seam open. Right there in the middle, I have that thread. It needs to be snipped. And there's our block. Thanks for joining us for block 3, and we'll see you next month for block 4. So let's go back to those little offcuts that we had. You can take these, press them open, and when you trim them down, you will have 3-inch half square triangles, 8 from fabric 4 and 8 from fabric 10. So I'm lining up my diagonal line right on the diagonal line of the half square triangle. I already trimmed up the outside edge. Now I want these to be exactly 3 inches. So I'm lining that up across here. And I'm going to do that to both of them. Again, lining up that diagonal line, making sure this goes past the 3 inches. And now when I flip it around, it should line up exactly on the 3-inch mark and the diagonal line right down the center, matching the seam line. So what do you do with all of your half square triangle offcuts? Do you save them and make a big scrappy quilt? Do you make an orphan block? Leave a comment down below. What do you do with your offcuts? We'll see you next month.